Hello everybody and welcome to a new live Lightroom tutorial. I'm Giselle Behrens and this is Photo TV NYC. Today we're going to learn how to edit your landscape photo to make it whoa, pop out, make the colors really vibrant and take away that gray that you usually have when you take a photo in RAW. So remember first of all to subscribe to the channel so you can never miss one of the live tutorials that we'll be doing every day at 12 p.m. and at 3 p.m. And hit that like button. Go, 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 go right now. That way you don't forget. And now let's get started. So I'm going to show you guys what I have right now on my Lightroom window. This is my Lightroom window. And it's my workspace. This tutorial is for those photographers out there that are already familiar with Lightroom. They already know the basics. And if you are starting out, we are going to have one course that is starting Lightroom from absolutely scratch. So you understand why Lightroom exists, what's the difference between Lightroom and Photoshop, why you want to use Lightroom to organize your photos, your life, and just be a completely happier and more professional photographer rather than always using Photoshop to do tiny edits. So that's where Lightroom comes in and gives its magic. Whenever you want to do an edit without compositing photos, you want to use Lightroom. So in this photo, I just want to edit the colors and I want to edit this amazing reflection that you can see over here on the bottom of the photo. And I'm going to turn my cursor on so you guys can always, here it is, so you can always see where I have my mouse pointing at and you can follow along on this tutorial. So the first thing that I usually do with my photos is I do my general adjustments. So my general adjustments, I mean that I'm not going to do any selective or any masking yet. Right now, I want to make sure that I have the best photo possible to start out with. So the exposure is pretty good on this photo, and I think I can just slide my exposure slider, which is right here to the right, under the Basic tab of the Develop module. You're always going to want to do all of your edits on your Develop module and just pump up that exposure and see what happens. So if you go all the way to the right, you can see that it really just goes overexposed. And if you go to the left, you're going to start seeing the information that you have in your highlights, but everything else goes underexposed. I do like to edit my photos a little bit dramatic, just so it has that whoa effect. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing in this tutorial. And right now, if you saw that arrow that I just drew on my screen, is to show you how we're going to be doing a mask on the top after we do our general adjustments to bring out these highlights. But right now I'm going to double click on my exposure word and that's going to reset back the slider to 0. So I'm going to just augment slightly the exposure. Now I'm going to work my way down on the Basic module and start with my contrast. Also, by the way, you can be editing and following along this tutorial with one of your own photos. If you do want to use this same photo that you see on my screen, which I took in Atlanta a couple of years back, you can download this original photo in its RAW format, and you can see the format and the information of the image by pressing the I on your keyboard. That hotkey is going to give you the information, so if you press it once, you're going to have this information come up on the upper left hand. If you press it twice, you're going to have more information come up. And if you press it a third time, it's going to disappear and give you more space to work, which is how I usually like to have it. So that's just a quick snippet. I do like to use hotkeys, so you will be seeing throughout the video and the tutorial which hotkeys trigger which adjustments and which tools. So we're working our way down on the Basic module and we're going to pump up this contrast just slightly. The contrast is going to give you some richer blacks and some whiter highlights. And you're going to see just by this adjustment really how the tree is becoming a little bit more alive. So I'm going to reset that so you guys can see the before and after. And it just starts giving you a little pop to that photo. So we're going to work our way down. We're going to check out our highlights. Our highlights right now, I have the information that I need on my clouds. You would use highlights, for example, if your photo is overexposed and you want to get some information on the highlights, you can start seeing how the highlight information starts appearing by sliding the highlights slider all the way to the left. That happens when you are taking photos and you overexpose your image and it comes out too white. So this is a handy tool just to revive those details that we thought that are lost. If you are taking your image in RAW, which is my go-to format file for photos, you are going to be able to recover a lot of the highlights. Now this particular photo, I was satisfied with how it was exposed, so I'm not going to touch the shadows nor the highlights. I'm just going to go all the way down. And our first tip of the day is going to be Dehaze, clarity, and texture. And it's right here on the screen. You can see it pop up and you can see how I'm drawing it under the basic tab. Still there. And really what this is going to do, it's going to give you more information, which can be lakes, like in this case, water bodies. You can have trees, skies, mountains, and all that good stuff. So usually you want to bring alive that texture and give it that 3D feeling so your viewer can completely immerse in all of the process of reading the story through your one photo, because a photo speaks more than 1,000 words, right? So you want to really get your story through and start visualizing and have your photo become alive of how you visualized it. So I'm just going to go a little bit lower my exposure on the top because I did notice that I went too high up. Right there is okay. You can come back and edit anytime, any adjustment that you did, and that's the beauty of Lightroom, because Lightroom is a non-destructive process which just includes the information of the edits that you're doing on top of the photo. So you're not actually adjusting any pixel from the photo. It's rather a tag that goes along with the photo until you actually export it. So going back to our tip, we're going to start with Dehaze and work ourselves from the bottom up. So Dehaze is the most sensitive of the 3 sliders, and you just want to slide it and see how your particular photo is going to be affected by this dehaze. So if you go all the way to your right, you're going to see that it becomes starting to look a little bit too funky, right? Your blacks are really becoming blacks. The saturations are really becoming more saturated. So I'm just going to reset that and go slightly to the right and stop where I'm satisfied. Right now I'm satisfied on 32 points. Then going up to the clarity, the clarity is going to help with the sharpness, and the trick of the clarity is that it gives you contrast in between the midtones. So those midtones are really the ones that are going to start becoming either darker or brighter. And it's usually, unless you go all the way to your right, it usually is not going to affect as much those blacks. So you want to be subtle and do all of the adjustments in a very subtle manner. So the subtle adjustments start stacking one on top of the other to give that wow and to give that pop of color and of textures that you're looking for as a photographer to tell your story. The last slider is called texture. So the texture is going to give you even more sharpness on the details. So when you do clarity and when you do texture, the best is always to be at 100%. When I go to 100%, I start seeing that Perhaps the blacks went a little bit too black for my taste and are becoming a little bit too blocky. So I'm going to return back on my dehaze just slightly, and on my clarity, play just around with it, and you can stop wherever you feel that it looks nice. Again, you can download this photo on the below link if you'd like to follow along with us with this particular photo or use your own. And then the texture, you're going to see how the leaves are really going to start to become individual leaves. I'm going to reset the texture and take a look over here at the screen so you guys can see how the texture is being adjusted. I just resetted it by double clicking on the word texture, and you can see that it becomes more fuzzy. It becomes a softer image. So you really want to add some texture to give that individuality to each and every one of the million of the leaves that are on this photo. So I'm satisfied there. I'm going to click Z for zoom. Z is a hotkey which you can use to zoom in and zoom out. Again, I really like to use hotkeys, and I'm going to be sharing some of them with you because that's going to give you a faster workflow. And this photo can be edited probably in around 2 to 3 minutes when you're working. Right now we're taking our time just to understand what the process is and which are the tips to make your landscape photographies really stand out from the crowd. So now that I'm happy with the dehaze, the clarity, and the texture, now I'm going to continue with my general adjustments, and in between my general adjustments I always go from the basic tab down to the detail tab. Now this detail tab is going to help us with the noise. As I mentioned before, our hotkey for the information is the I, which just popped up on your screen. So I'm going to hit I twice to bring out the ISO information of how much ISO I was using, what was the ISO setting of the camera when I took this particular photo. So this photo was taken on ISO 100, which means that it really shouldn't have as much noise because the noise and the grain is very, very tight together, and it's pretty small as there was so much sun that day. So I'm going to press I again just to remove that information, and every time that you're adjusting your detail, you want to zoom in at 100% to see where your noise is at. This is such a busy image that really there's very, very little noise. So we're just going to add around 5. If we go in a little bit more, and you can zoom in at 2 to 1, you're going to start maybe seeing some noise over here, but it's ever so slight. So I think that around, I'm going to leave it at 5, the noise reduction, because there's not much noise. And if you do add too much noise, your image is going to start to become pasty. So for this image, we want a sharp look and clean edges on those trees and on those leaves that are so beautiful that you can even hear them crunching when you see this photo. So I'm going to go back to 1 to 1 on my zoom and then zoom out. Now that we did the detail, we can go ahead and do remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections, which is all under the lens correction tab. This way you're going to have your distortion of any type of lens that you used eliminated, and you're going to have a very clean photo to look as a professional photographer as you are. So now that we have finished our basic adjustments, we're going to start analyzing this photo and see what is missing. I feel that the image is too gray and that the colors can still pop more. So I'm going to go back to my basic adjustment and do one more general correction, which is vibrance and saturation. So we're going to slide our saturation slider to see what the difference is between vibrance and saturation and see how each of the sliders affects our image. So if I go with the saturation, you're going to see that all of the saturation is affecting all of the entire image, all of the colors, 100% of the pixels. And it looks pretty good. I'm going to reset my saturation by double clicking on the word saturation, and now I'm going to go to vibrance and slide the slider to the right and see how it affects it. So I think that the difference in this particular photo is that the vibrance and the saturations affect these colors over here of the trees the same way. However, I think that saturation, I'm going to reset vibrance and augment saturation. Saturation is also affecting a lot the blues and making my sky and my reflection a little bit too blue. So I'm going to reset saturation and I'm going to go with vibrance for this photo, and each and every photo is going to be adjusted and it's going to be affected in a different way depending on the sliders that you use. Not every photo is its own world, and each slider is going to give it its own magic. So that's why you want to test out the sliders and see how it's going to affect the adjustments that you're doing live. So I'm going to augment my vibrance and I'm going to leave it at around 48. This is really going to give me the greens, the yellows, and the oranges that I have over here. Now, if I go to the trees and look at them, I do feel that the oranges can be a little bit more red. And here is where our second tip is going to come up, which is tip 2 HSL. Now we're going to go into the control over how each and every color that you can see in our photo can be adjusted. So you're going to have H for hue, S for saturation, L for luminescence. So we're going to start out with our hue, and I want to bring your attention to the trees which are red or a dark orange. I really want to make this dark orange look red. I want to give that fall color, that extra punch, and that extra drama to make this photo so unique that everybody's going to want to stop and say, hey, I want to be in Atlanta in Big Canoe where this photo was taken. So I'm going to go to my hue sliders and select my little pointer, which is this one. Just click on it and it's going to illuminate to make sure that you have it on. And when you go onto your image, you're going to see that your cursor is now a little circle with an arrow on the top and the bottom. So you want to get this cursor and the pointer, you're going to select the area of the color that you want to adjust. On this one, I want to adjust the red, so I'm going to see what happens if I drag it all the way to the top. So if I drag it to the top, it's going to become yellow, and you can see the adjustments and the colors that were picked up on the right-hand side. Now, anything that was red or orange is going to start becoming more orange and more yellow. So our trees completely got lost, and it looks more like a springtime photo because all of the greens or leaves are green and yellow. So now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to grab the same area and I'm going to go all the way down. And now my colors are completely red, magenta, and orange. And the colors that were affected are red and orange. So if I zoom out using the Z as in zoom, and it's right there on your screen, if I zoom out using our hotkey, you're going to start seeing that the reds really came out, but it just looks overexposed, over-manipulated. You don't want to look as you did too much adjustments to call so much attention to your photo, because it's going to be a little bit too much unless that's the look that you're going for. So I'm just going to reset all of the adjustments by double clicking on the word hue. That's going to give me our original colors, and I'm just going to go once more and do slight adjustments and stop where I feel that it looks okay. And here this red looks as a really beautiful and realistic red, like the one that I was seeing when I was there. And if I zoom out using our Z, you can see how beautiful this landscape is starting to look. We can toggle and go back to our before. The hotkey to go back to our before photo, and it's always good to take a look at our before and after just to see where we started and where we're at, is the backslash, and it just popped up on your screen. So this hotkey is going to let you toggle between before and after. So we're going to go back to our after and before, after, and you can really see how the colors and how the textures are starting to become more alive, especially in this area, just by using our HSL tab and slider. Now I'm going to close up our HSL because I am satisfied where we are. And our third tip is going to be using masks. So for the masks, we're going to edit the sky, both on the top, and the sky, both on the reflection. So we're going to start with the top part of the photo, which is the top sky. As you can see right now, without any masks, you have some information of the clouds, and that's great because when you're editing your photo, you want to have as much information as you want, so you can use it or you can discard the information. But the important thing is that you as a photographer have the control to decide how much drama, how much shadows, how much contrast, and how much highlights are going to be in your photo. So I'm going to press our hotkey M, which just popped up on your screen, to bring up our masks. And when you do press M, your mask tab is going to come on your right hand side, and you can also select your masks by selecting on this icon. So if you toggle that icon, it's going to open it up. But again, I really do like to save time and use hotkeys, so I suggest that you can start investigating and practicing the hotkeys as well. So when you're here, just double click on the effect to reset all of the sliders that you have on your right hand side. And we are going to diminish, we're going to underexpose the sky just to bring it down and bring lower, darker the sky, and see what happens with the texture of the clouds. So I'm going to leave it at around 1.5. And now I'm going to go on top of the image. My cursor is a small cross. So the direction that I'm going to bring my mask is from the top to the bottom, and you want to have that mask nice and feathered so it doesn't really show a harsh point in between the adjustment that you just did. If you leave it without the feathering, you can see over here how this transition is so harsh that it looks very strange. So we're going to pull and drag that effect that we're doing and this mask down so we can have a nice and smooth effect. You can also see where your mask is by hitting on the O key, that's your hotkey, to make appear a pink mask, and this pink mask is going to be showing you what areas of your photo are being adjusted and affected by the adjustments that you're doing right now. So you can toggle the O and just hit it again and it's going to hide. You can also hide your masks by pressing the H as in house or the H as in hide, and you can take a look at your preview of the photo and how it's going. So right now, in terms of the adjustment, I think that it went a little bit too dark, so I'm going to put it a little bit lighter and just give that subtle effect of the clouds on the top. I'm going to see what happens if we go back to our first tip, which is dehaze. What happens if I dehaze it and it starts becoming a little bit more dramatic with the shadows on the texture of the clouds? And I do like that. I appreciate that. So I'm just going to go at 12. And again, these subtle adjustments are really what is going to be adding up in your photo to give you that amazing and breathtaking landscape photo that you want to sell or that you want to share with a friend and that you want to tell the story of how the experience of watching this amazing landscape was when you were actually there in person. Now that we did the top part of our photo, we're going to go down to the bottom part and we're going to hit M again just to make sure that we're in our masks. As I was already in my mask section, the mask section actually closed up. But you can just toggle your M for masks again and hit the new button and go back to double click on effect, or if you'd like, because the effect was only the exposure that was a little bit underexposed and it's the same adjustment that we're doing on the top to the bottom one, you can just drag with this direction from the bottom to the top your little cross and just feather it out. And now you can start seeing how this photo starts becoming more alive. I'm going to toggle the M hotkey just to exit our masks to see where we're at right now and see the before. Remember, you can do your backslash just to take a look at the before. And here's your after, before. You can see how this photo started as such a gray and overcast image. And now it's starting to become more alive with the textures, and we're also guiding the viewer's eye where the light is. So I want to make sure that there's enough light on this area, because here is where I really want my viewer to play, and I want his eyeballs to roll this direction and then roll back this direction, up here to the sky, down here to the reflection, and start all over again. So you can guide your viewer's eye and guide the experience that your viewer has on how they're going to be reading the story visually by using light. For example, I feel that this area might be a little bit too dark, so we can go to our hotkey K, which just popped up on your screen, and this hotkey is going to bring us our paint. So this is a mask as well, and it's our third tip, the masks, but this mask is going to be painted in. So again, you're going to go and double click on the effects just to make sure that all of your sliders are resetted down to 0, and I want to expose it just a little bit, so I'm going to go up to 1 point. And here I'm going to just paint on this part of the tree, just slightly, and now I'm a little bit more open up on this area. So the shadows opened up, and I am satisfied with how it looks right now. I feel that the bottom reflection is a little bit too dark, so I'm going to press M to go back to my masks, and your two masks are going to appear as 2 dots. The one that I want to adjust right now is the bottom one. I perhaps don't want to go so dark. I want to balance it out with the top. So I'm going to go a little bit higher up, and now I feel that the image is much more balanced. Pressing M, my hotkey, to exit the masks, I'm going to go toggle the before, toggle the after, and now I'm satisfied with my photo. I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Remember to subscribe, because we're always doing different types of images. We're going to be exploring some portraits next week, the week of April 20th. And if you are not watching this live, you can also take a look at them in our Lightroom tutorial playlist. Also, like that video, and if you do have an image that you'd like me to edit live while we're live, and you can see all of the effects that the adjustments and the tools of Lightroom have, please do send it to this email that is right below, myphototvnyc@gmail.com. We have already submissions, and we have 2 selected photographers in which we're going to be editing their photos the week of April 20th, 2020. So keep an eye out for that, and thank you for watching. See you guys on our next live, which is at 3 p.m. These lives are every day at 12 p.m., 3 p.m., and we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody. Take photos, revive those photos in your archives.